Okay, today we're going to do Unit 4, Notes number 15, which is scale changes. So this is our last set of notes before we're going to take our test. So if you guys have any questions over anything that we've covered, please let us know. And hopefully you guys will start working on the practice test tomorrow to prepare for that test. So what we're going to talk about today is scale changes. So we've actually already covered scale changes at the beginning of this unit for the first test. And we're going to cover scale changes again. It just looks a little bit different. So you're going to be given a graph and you have to write the equation to the graph, and then you have to apply the scale change, and then you have to graph your new function. So there's multiple steps to this one. Before, we were given the equation, had to apply the scale change, and then had to graph it. So this one's a little bit trickier because we have to make sure we get that equation to the graph that they give us correct. So the two things that you want to find for whenever you're writing your equation are your slope, which is your rise over run, and your y-intercept. So those are the two things you want to find because you want to be able to put it into y equals mx plus b form. So I'm going to find my y-intercept. My y-intercept is 0, -1, and then I'm going to find my slope. So that's a point, and then this will be another point. So it looks like I rise 1, and then I run 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1 over 4 would be my slope. So I'm putting this in the equation. I'm going to have y equals my slope, which is 1/4 x, and then plus my b value, which is my y-intercept, which is -1. So once I have this equation, and then I plug this in for my f of x, and then I apply the scale change. So I'm going to have y equals 2, and then I'm going to put in parentheses what my equation was for my graph that I found. And then I'm going to distribute. 2 times 1/4 is going to give you 1/2 x. 2 times -1 is going to give you -2, and then plus 3. Combine your like terms. So your final equation is going to be y equals 1/2 x plus 1. I am then going to graph this line. So you can plug it into your calculator, or you can graph it. My y-intercept is 1. Whoops, my y-intercept is 1. My slope is 1/2. So those would be the points I graph, and then I'm going to draw my line. Okay, so that is the step. So this is a multi-step problem. And just don't, if you're like, well, Mrs. Gilbert, what if I get the equation wrong in the first step, but I do everything else right? You're still going to get some of your points, you guys. You'll just miss a point for getting the wrong equation at the beginning. But if you do everything else right, you will still get your points. So just don't freak out if you're like, well, what if you screw out one part, but you do the next part correctly with your mistake, you will be just fine. Okay. Let's move on to the next problem. Okay, the next one, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to find our y-intercept and our slope. So our y-intercept is 1. And then our slope, let's go find another point. Looks like we rise 1, 2, and run 1. So we have 2 over 1, and this is a negative slope, so it's going down, so our slope is -2. Put this into our equation, so we're going to have y equals -2x plus 1. Then I'm going to take this, plug it in for my f of x. So this one's a little bit tricky because there's just a negative right there. So we're going to have y equals negative, and then in my brackets, I'm going to do -2x plus 1, and then minus the 3. So I have to distribute this -1. So all it's doing is it's changing the sign on everything. So that becomes a positive 2x. That becomes a -1. -3. Combine your -3 and -1. That will give you -4 because you add them and keep your sign. You're then going to take this and graph this. So you could put this into your calculator in order to get your points. So our y-intercept is -4. We're going up 2 over 1. So at least plot 3 of those 5 points because it looks like that's all we can do. And then draw your line. Okay, last problem. So we're doing the same thing, finding our y-intercept and our slope. So on this one, our y-intercept is 0, 0. And then our slope, this will be our second point. Rise 1, run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our slope is 1 over 5. And it's positive because it's going up. So I'm going to have y equals 1/5 x. Since my y-intercept is 0, I can put plus 0, but you do not have to because that's not going to affect anything. Take your 1/5 x, plug it in for f of x. So you're going to have y equals -5. And then my equation from the first one is going to go in those brackets for f of x, and then -2. So you get y equals -5 times 1/5 is going to give me -1x minus 2. So that one I don't have to do as many steps, and then I'm going to graph it. So you can put it into your calculator. So my y-intercept's -2. Those are going to be my 2 other points. And I'm going to draw my line. Okay, so those are our 3 examples for scale changes. If you need anything else, if you have any other questions on that, please let us know. We're going to go do some review on the back. It says, which of the following is an equation of a vertical line? So if you guys remember your acronym for vertical line, it's VUX. So that means it's just going to be an x equals a number. So you can eliminate our y's. This one is not possible, so it'd have to be D. It's just x equals a number. Next says write the equation that has a slope of -1 and a y-intercept of 12. So we're going to replace our m with -1x, and then our slope, or then our y-intercept is 12. Part B says write the equation of a different line that has the same slope. So your slope is this -1. So that's the only thing that needs to stay the same. The y-intercept, which is at the end, that can change to anything. So I'm going to do +6. You could do -5. You could do +2.5. You can do +100. The y-intercept just has to be different. Okay, last example is our word problem. It says Jeff is hosting a birthday party for his son's sweet 16. The cost for each person to attend is $10. So each person is $10. The cost for the venue is $100. Write an equation in slope-intercept form to model this situation. Define your variables. So each person, that's where our x is going to go. The venue, that's going to be a one-time cost. So our equation is going to be y equals 10x plus 100. X is going to represent the number of people, because depending on how many people depends on how much it's going to cost us. And then y is going to be our total cost, because once we add how many people with the 100, that's going to equal our total cost. Next, it says if Bill's total bill is $250, is it possible there are 13 people? So if you guys remember, you can do this 2 different ways. You can plug in 13 for x or plug in 250 for y. Let's do 13 for x. So we're going to do 10 times 13 plus 100. 10 times 13 is 130 plus 100. This will give you 230. So if it costs you 230, did he have 13? Since it costs 230, are those the same? No. So is it possible there were 13 people in attendance? No, it is not possible. There would be more than 13 people in attendance. Give a reasonable domain. So our domain is our x values. So our x is our number of people. So x can be greater than or equal to 0 because we could have 0 people on up. Okay, let me know if you guys have any questions on that. You guys can get started on your homework, and if you guys have any questions over anything from this unit, please ask because we'll be testing at the end of this week.